we'll put the lights up, and we'll let you all ask questions of Shelley. We have a little bit of time for this, and I'm happy to take any hands that go up.
Hey, Dan. You're first, of
Dan,
course.
I wasn't looking at you, Dan, but I was thinking of you. Go ahead.
Is marriage in the future?
Is marriage in the future? You know, when I decided to come out, Dan, I had a discussion with my sister about babies and marriage, and I think we talked about it. I think we had that discussion. And then once I did come out, it occurred to me, holy crap, I get to do all that. I do want to be married, and I do want to be a mom.
Okay. Sir.
Shelley, when you look back at the old CMT, TNN videos, the Shut Up and Drive, and the Single White Female, there's
oh Lord,
there's a line in one of your songs where you say, "He's not the one. You ought to know that by now."
Yeah.
Is it strange looking back at that time in your life?
What's your name?
Joseph.
Joseph. That's a good question. I never felt that the narratives of any of the songs that I sang or wrote, for that matter, were a betrayal. There were many crimes I committed against myself, and many ways that I hid and disguised things about myself, but I never felt that in the music. And I say this because the way that I was introduced to music at a young age, country artist, I had an understanding early on that many of these artists were making up these songs and becoming a character for a moment. I became the girl in that song, Shut Up and Drive. I wanted to be the best deliverer of the best, most pure version of Single White Female. And to me, when I found that song, when I heard the demo, it was perfect as it was. And when I sing it today, I still sing it, Single White Female, looking for a man like you. Now, when I play a Pride Fest, I do say, looking for a woman, like a girl like you. But I never felt that I was betraying myself in the narrative of the music. It's a good question.
Sure.
Shelley, I just finished the book, and it's just beautiful.
Thank you.
And again, your relationship with your father is one of the most interesting aspects of it. I'm curious what he thinks of the book, especially after the inclusion of some of those tough parenting things that involve your sister and your brother.
Yeah. What's your name? Rush. Thanks for that question. My dad had not read my book until my book was embargoed, meaning they didn't print copies early for reviewers. It just came out when it came out. No pun intended. So I got my first hands on the copy, I guess, 5 days before it was released. And I went to the FedEx in New York and was going to send him my book, and I had to get out of line. I couldn't stay in line because I think I had a panic attack, which I've never had in my life. I was terrified to send this book to my dad. And Jay's from my hometown, here in the front row. He knows my dad, and I didn't want to devastate my dad. And I hadn't told him. I had told my dad that I had written some difficult parts in the book, but I hadn't told him exactly what they were. And I knew I had to tell those stories about, some of the deficits in parenting that I experienced. My dad called me 2 days before I came out, left me a message, "Rochelle, Renee, call your father." And my sister was in my apartment in New York asleep, and I went out to my courtyard and called my dad, and y'all, it was as if someone had written a beautiful speech for my dad. And he talked for about 5 minutes about how perfect the book was and how proud he was of me for telling the entire truth. And my dad and I have had discussions over the years about the things you're talking about, Rush, and my dad has long made apologies for his failures as a parent, and I have long accepted those apologies. And I love the man my dad is growing into, and I watch that growth every day. So it was hard for him. I'm not going to tell you it didn't hurt his pride. It didn't hurt his feelings. Of course it did. But he knew I had to tell the truth. And if you haven't read the book, what Rush is talking about is some things that I experienced in my household that would lead me to have an augmented fear of my parents, an augmented fear of being just who I am. My sister was an overweight kid, and at one point my parents tied a rope to her and made her run behind a car. And I detailed that story, and it was, my sister knew that. I read the chapter to her before it went to print, and she said, "You did it." And I was crying. She said, "Shell, why are you crying?" I said, "It hurts so bad to read that to you." She said, "I know the ending. I'm fine." So I had to tell that story, though, because I needed to display the ways in which I saw my parents' unwillingness to love their kids unconditionally. Even though I think they did love us, they just didn't know how. And I was so afraid to just be who I was. So I hope that answers your question.
Other questions? Back and then front.
Shelley, how is, I guess, your fellow peers in country music? Have you seen any of them recently or ran into them anywhere? And have they said anything different to you or treated you any different? Or,
Yeah.
I know there was something I read about, I don't know if it was Big or Rich or one of those, somebody had said something to you negative a while back saying don't come out, and then what consequences have you had lately?
Yeah. What's your name?
Debbie.
Debbie, thank you. Actually, John Rich is the one I mentioned in my book of Big and Rich, and he didn't say don't come out because I'd never told him that I was gay. He confronted me. I detail this in my book as well. He confronted me one night and said, and we were alone in a car, and I was scared, and not scared for my physical safety, just I was scared. And he said, "You're not gay, are you?" And I'd never before lied about my sexuality. I'd never been put in a position to lie. I'd always made myself unavailable for that question. And that night in the car, I took a deep breath and I said, "No, John, I'm not gay." And he said, "Good, because that shit ain't cool. That's not going to fly. You know, we're Christians in country music, you know," and it just terrified me. And it sent me into a tailspin, quite frankly. So I write about that in the book. The day I came out and the book came out, John Rich issued a statement. I don't know if y'all read that statement. It's interesting, if anything. It's not accurate. I stand by the timeline of my book, and just Google those, you'll see what I'm talking about. But as far as my peers in country music, when I was on the Oprah show, she asked me, had I heard from any of my peers? And I've been in Nashville 22 years, been making records for 16 years. I'm friendly with a lot of folks. We have one another's phone numbers and email addresses. I heard from 2 artists at that time that I was on Oprah. The day after the Oprah episode aired, and I was surprised to not have heard from some of my friends, I got an email from Faith Hill, who is a good friend of mine. And she said, I was watching Oprah, and she said, when you came out, you were on my heart. It's a very Mississippi thing to say. She said, you were on my heart, and I was happy for you, proud of you. I'd never told her that I was gay. We never talked about it. And she said, and when Oprah asked you if you'd heard from your friends in country music, and you said, just 2, she said, I became ashamed. And she said, I'm writing to you not because I think other people ask if you've heard from me. She said, I'm writing to you because I'm sorry that I didn't reach out. And she said, you are my friend, and you're an inspiration, and I love you, and I'm proud of you. And I've received a few of those notes.
As a guest member of the Grand Ole Opry, do you think they'll ever extend another invitation to you?
My history with the Opry is, what's your name?
Jamie.
Do you love the Opry like I do?
I do.
It was my dream to make records and be on that Opry stage. And I made my first performance on the Opry stage September 16th, 1989, before I got a record deal. I was on with Mr. Acuff and Miss Minnie Pearl. So my history with the Opry goes way back. And I've done the Opry over 100 times. In fact, I was asked by my first record label to stop talking about the Opry so much. It's messing up your commercial appeal, because back then the Opry wasn't considered cool, and it was old school. And I said, I don't care. I love the Opry. I'm going to talk about the Opry. So I kind of became a darling of the Opry, and that pleased me. And there was a point in my career where I really thought that I was about to be invited to be the next member of the Opry. And when I wasn't, when I was passed up, there was a rumor that I was about to be asked, and then I wasn't asked. And there were a lot of journalists, and I thank them to this day, that said this is a disgrace that this woman has not been embraced by the Opry. She's done more for and with the Opry than any of the new stars of today. But I continued to go, and I continued to do the Opry every time they asked me that I was able. Up until my coming out, I was asked probably 4 or 5 times a year to do the Opry, and I have not received one single.
Have you had a conversation with anybody there about that?
Not a word.
No.
No.
It's hard not to take from that it's kind of causal deal.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in the absence of any other explanation, it'd be a hell of a coincidence, wouldn't it?
It would be, considering for 22 years I've done the Opry at least 6 times a year.
Yeah. I saw a hand over on this side. We do just a couple more.
I could stay all night.
I know you can, and I know you would. JJ.
Forgive me if I missed this, but I'd like to take control here. But I mean, you've been in the business a long time. What do you think of the state of country today in general?
Yeah. What about that? Leaving aside all other stuff.
Yeah, JJ, you must come here often.
It's his
You live-
place.
This is your place.
We're in his house.
Nice. Good to be in your house. I think this about country music. I think it's always, I remember when my first record came out and people were saying, country music's harder to make it than ever. And then 5 years into my career, the label executives were saying, it's harder than ever. It's always been hard. Mm-hmm. It's always been hard to get a record on the radio. And I've watched people complain about styles, and it's not country enough. And then an artist will give them a country record, and then it won't get played. They'll play something poppy. And there is always good music out there if you're willing to look. I think people just like to complain about stuff. I mean, we don't have a country station in New York, but I go online, I look, I listen. There are a lot of really good, relevant...
There are country stations on satellite radio.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, country music is out there to be found. And, you know, of course we have our trends in country music. We have the flavor of the month type artists that, you know, you watch them come and go. They don't tend to have long careers. And who knows if they want a long career. Maybe they want to just come hit a lick and get out. You got to love this business to stay in it for a long time. But... you know, maybe I'm the glass half full gal too. I can always find something on country radio I like. When I drive cross country, I turn my cell phone off and I'm a station flipper, and I love to discover new.
What's the last
music.
great country record that you discovered?
The last great country record. Oh, I haven't been listening to a lot of country music. Current stuff since I moved away from Nashville, but
what's the last great old country record you listened to?
Oh, Diamonds and Dirt by Rodney Crowell. I mean, and he might tan my hide for saying that's an old record.
He's here this week. He's at Book People Friday with his book.
Oh, it's a great book too. It's a fantastic book. China Berry Sidewalks. Go get it. You know, I listened to 80s Ladies the other day by Katie Oslin. I mean, she was one of the reasons why I sought out Harold Shedd to be my first producer, and he signed me to Mercury Records in early '94 or late '93, because I felt like, although my musical style wasn't like Katie Oslin, I thought, now that's a 10-song record that you know who that artist is. When you listen to that record from top to bottom, you know who Katie Oslin is, and I wanted to be known like that. I wanted musically to have a narrative. And so I put that record on the other day and just got lost in it.
It's great.
Got lost in it.
It's great when that stuff never goes away.
It never does.
Never
Hey,
goes away.
Bobby, Would you like to go for a ride? It's just so good.
Now you've performed twice on this stage.
I like how you're thinking.
We're gonna get a full show out of you before this is over. Let's do one more. Yes, I'm afraid
Thanks,
that again
JetBlue.
you should sing "JetBlue Broke My Guitar." That would actually be. Let's do one more. Yes, sir.
So I bought your album on iTunes,
Yeah.
and I noticed that every single song has the explicit marker. Can
Now,
you
what about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. I only say the F word on one song.
But every song has the.
And that's interesting because if you go, because I actually, when I saw that, I was like, what is this? And so I went
Right.
to the help and went to the topics to figure out how they selected. And they said that it's the artist's choice to put.
It's not, and we've complained that we've asked that be changed. I don't want to speculate that it's a grand conspiracy on iTunes'
Oh,
part.
what
to
the
not-
hell?
Yeah, are they trying to kill me here? I know. I say the F word in one song, and I think I say shit in Object of Your Rejection, don't I? I meant to if I didn't.
Yes, I'll take another question, of course. I mean, how can you not like her? I just don't understand. Go ahead.
Was there a song for your last album that you wanted to put on, but you were hesitant to do that and decided against it?
Because of...
Just because you thought maybe it was a little too revealing or too questionable?
You mean on the album prior to this one?
No. I mean,
On Lifted Off the
yes,
Ground,
yeah.
this one? No, I didn't even... in fact, when I came out to Rodney on my porch in Nashville, we had chosen all the songs for the record. We had tracked half of the album. And when I told him that I'm gay, I said, in fact, Rodney, there's one song I've held back from you that really is at the heart of the matter. And I said, I think it's probably the best song that I wrote during my breakdown, which I now call my breakthrough. And mind you, I didn't write these songs knowing I was going to come out. I wrote these songs just as a matter of, they were strictly medicinal to get them out of me. So I sent Rodney, he said, play the song, and I said, no, I'll send it to you. And I sent him a song called Like Me, which kind of, if you listen to it with a good set of ears, you can tell I'm talking about my failed relationship with another woman. And he called me and said, we're cutting this. We're putting this on the record. And he and I got 2 guitars, went to a studio, and had one engineer. Everybody else was out of the studio, and it's one pass, he and I on 2 guitars, and no overdubs, no punching in, no fixing anything. And so I had no fear. Once I decided to come out, everything got really easy for me. I know that may sound a little crazy, but when you don't have to worry about a full-time job of hiding and wearing a disguise, musically, it just got easy. I did write a bunch of songs that we weeded through to see which ones would be best for the record, and some of those may end up on the next record.
But you didn't keep anything out deliberately.
No.
Yeah.
I said the F word on record. I mean, obviously,
Hey.
I wasn't editing myself too much.
Clearly, you get that explicit button, right? That's
Right.
it. All right, well, let's call this to a close. Let me encourage you, Ann, may I do that people attend your event tomorrow?
Actually, we're sold out.
Are you? Let me encourage you not to attend Ann's event tomorrow. I'll confess to being glad. That's good.
That's incredible.
That's great. Well, she does a good job with that.
And what's the website for Atticus Circle?
www.atticuscircle.org.
Okay.
.org.
It's like Atticus Finch.
We are lucky.
My favorite
We are
book.
lucky to have good guests all the time. I'd say this was a really wonderful opportunity. So let's please give Shelley Wright a hand.
Thanks, Evan. Thank you.